Evening and welcome. A very special show tonight featuring the music of one of today's most prolific and successful composers of stage musicals and the performing talents of some of Australia's top performers. The composer is the man who wrote Barnum, the show currently running in Melbourne, and I Love My Wife, which opens here shortly. He also wrote the magnificent Sweet Charity and hit songs like Witchcraft, Hey Look Me Over, and Real Live Girl. Giving his work the treatment during the show will be Julie Anthony, David Atkins, Peter Bishop, Chelsea Brown, Pamela Gibbons, Nancy Hayes, Tony Lamond, Natalie Moscow, Trinka Mustard, Pamela French, and Karen Johnson. And then there's the cast of I Love My Wife, Angela Ayres, Tony Sheldon, and Peter Topano. But first of all, let's meet the composer and my special guest tonight. He started his career being discovered by the Milkman, would you believe? And then he played classical recitals at Carnegie Hall and is today one of Broadway's top composers. Here, playing and singing Come Follow the Band from his latest musical, Barnum, ladies and gentlemen, Cy Coleman.
Come follow the band wherever it's at. Let both of your feet beat time to the drum and feel your heart go rat-a-tat-tat. A flag in your hand, a plume in your hat, battalions of brass scratch against the light. Is there a sight that's sweeter than that? See the pretty lady toss that Dutch on high. Ain't she cute as a daisy? See the fellow with the big bass drum go by. Ain't you glad that you stayed? Hear the tuba play that pa oh my. Ain't it driving you crazy? Don't you be so darn lazy. You better hurry and join that big parade. Up out of your seat, down off of the stand, step out to the suite. Beat the bugle play, it's a sound that you'll remember all your days. And when you see the leader proudly raise his hand, just follow the band. Step out to the suite, beat the bugle, play the sound that you'll remember all your days. And when you see the leader proudly raise his hand, just follow the
Cy, welcome. That's, yeah, they're dead. That was a tune, of course, from Barnum, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It's the beginning of the second act.
That's right, and it's a show that's been successful in New York, in London, as well as here.
Yes, New York, London, and it's opening up in 10 other countries. It's already played France, and it's opening up in Mexico. I don't think it's opening up in Argentina. I think it was planned.
How did you first start writing popular songs? Because your first efforts were marvelous ones, weren't they? The Witchcraft you wrote for Sinatra. You wrote The Best Is Yet to Come for Tony Bennett. How did they happen?
Well, you know, I was thinking about that. You know, I started writing tunes, you know, when I was in my teens. I wrote a tune called The Riviera, and I had some fellow put a lyric to it, and I'll just show you what happened to it. It was just run like this. The Riviera, no. It would start off this way. Oh, Castaneda, Oh, lovely, lovely Castaneda. I can't forget the night I met her. She cast a net round my heart.
Great lyrics.
Oh, I knew that was bad then.
That's one of the worst lyrics I've ever heard, actually.
Yeah, it was, you know. I got to learn about lyrics, and then I wrote with a fellow called Joe McCarthy, and afterwards it became the Riviera. On every street a gay casino, where continentals sip their vino and leave their fortunes to chance. Well, you can see it improved a lot.
Well, the moral of that story is never throw away a good tune.
That's right.
it, yeah. But what about Witchcraft?
Well, Witchcraft, I first started writing with Carolyn Lee. As a matter of fact, it was when I was writing with a fellow called Joseph McCarthy, and we'd stopped for a while, you know, and I asked Carolyn Lee if she wanted to write a few songs. And we had some success. We wrote some tunes, and they had some acceptance. And she had this title, Witchcraft. And, you know, when you first start writing a song, you start going immediately for what it is. You know, it sounds witchcraft. And I was a sweet witch, look to your witchcraft. Didn't work. And so it took about a few days, and then I came up with the opening tune, you know. Those fingers in my hair, that slide come hither stare. And what we did was wait 1 year for Frank Sinatra to make up his mind, but when he did, it was really a thrill. I must say, that's one of the thrilling moments I can remember. Frank Sinatra had accepted the song, and he was going to do it. And we waited, and the record finally arrived. Now, I can't tell you what that feeling is to hear a record that is as good as the record that Frank Sinatra made. That was really one of the big thrills for me.
Mm. What comes first, the lyric or the tune? It's the old question. Sammy Kahn always says the phone call comes first.
Well, I think he's, Sammy does that, but he'll probably do a parody on it. Actually, I like to quote Richard Rodgers, who said the check.
The check comes first. The first Broadway musical you did was called Wildcat, starring Lucille Ball.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. How did you meet, and what was a song from that you remember best of all?
Well, the way we met was, actually, what happened is Carolyn Lee and I were auditioning for a lot of shows. We'd written some scores. And Michael Kidd, who we'd auditioned for, hadn't taken us for one show, but as a matter of fact, it was Sammy Kahn and Jimmy Van Heusen that had Wildcat. And I guess they had some falling out with Lucy, and he remembered our audition, and he called us up. And so that was our first real show. And it was funny because we were sort of on trial. And we're looking for the opening number for Lucille Ball. We wrote a lot of other things in between, but waiting for the opening number, and it was scary. You know, here's this woman, just came off of television, a huge star. She wasn't exactly Joan Sutherland, you know, you had to write within a very compressed range. And the question was what to write. And everything I wrote sounded like Ethel Merman had sung it a few times over. And so I kept trying and looking, and finally, after desperation, after 6 weeks, we looked at each other and said, what if you don't care? I said, if I didn't care, I'd write da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and I played the whole song. But we laughed because we were sophisticated songwriters, and that was much too simple. I said, well, we can't be represented by a simple song like that. And Carolyn Lee called me up that night. She said, remember that funny little tune you were playing? She said, what, how do you like this lyric? Hey, look me over, lend me an ear, fresh out of clover, mortgage up to here. Well, I said, that's fun. I said, well, we're not going to use it, are we? She says, definitely not. Well, we played some of the songs. We went to our publisher, played him some songs, and finally it came that auspicious moment where we were to meet Lucille Ball. And we did, by the way, the publisher really loved it. He said, you've got to finish it, and we did. And Lucille Ball came up to the office, and it was really an eye-opener. She was more nervous than I was, and I was nervous. And Carolyn Lee was fainting. And she sat down, and she said, you're not going to ask me to sing, are you? I said, well, you're not going to ask me to play. So we played her some songs, and then when we got, she said, the publisher prodded us. She said, play her that song. And we played Hey, Look Me Over, and she said, I can sing that. And I said, fine. I said, you want to try? And she got over to the piano, and it's funny because we got, you know, we were sort of looking at each other the same way. It was not nearly as relaxed. And we got into a staring contest. You know, we got locked in, and we just couldn't, we were frozen. And, you know, she was saying, hey, look me over. Her voice was quaking, and my hands were shaking. And finally, we got through this, and she said, "Come on, I'll drive you home." And on the way downstairs, she turned to me and said, "Let's never do that again." She said, "My eyeballs hurt." So, anyway, we did. Oh, sure. Want to hear the verse too?
Yeah.
Why not?
Nobody in the world was ever without a prayer. How can you win the world if nobody knows you're there? Kid, when you need the crowd, the tickets are hard to sell. Still you can lead the crowd if you can get up and yell.
Hey, look me over, lend me an ear. Fresh out of clover, mortgaged up to here. Don't pass the plate, boys, don't pass the cup. I figure whenever you're down and out, the only way is up, and I'll be up like a rosebud high on the vine. Don't thumb your nose, but take a tip from mine. I'm a little bit short of the elbow room, but let me get me some. And look out, world, here I come. Look me over, lend me an ear. Fresh out of clover, mortgage up to here. But don't pass the plate, boys, don't pass the cup. I figure whenever you're down and out, the only way is up. And I'll be up like a rosebud high on the vine. Don't thumb your nose, but take a tip from mine. I'm a little bit short of the elbow room, but let me get me some. And look out, world, hear me shout, world. Hey, look out, world, here I
What about Sweet Charity? Because it was your biggest hit both on stage and on screen too. That was the original, was a film, wasn't it? A Fellini movie.
Nights of Cabiria,
That's
Fellini.
right, about a prostitute.
Yeah.
You had to
Very likable prostitute.
very likable one, but in fact she wasn't even a prostitute, was she, in the Broadway musical?
She was a dance hall hostess, and she was nearly a prostitute.
But I mean, it got some marvelous tunes in there, and I suppose out of the fact that she was a dance hall hostess, you had that marvelous number, Big Spender. Although you could have done the same for a prostitute, couldn't you? Come to think of it.
Oh, sure, it's the
Absolutely,
same thing.
it didn't matter. Yes.
Well, it was done as other prostitutes because really, what happened is this: when I discovered the vamp, I was looking for something really raunchy, and that became the top of my overture, which is. No, it went on like that. But the way Bob Fosse staged it was really remarkable. I mean, he had all these girls lined up at the bar, and they all did it deadpan.
Yes.
And they looked straight out at the audience, and then they curled and they twisted around this bar. Well, I mean, it wasn't prostitution, but I mean, it was pretty good.
It got me good. That's for sure. It's a great score, that. It's a marvelous score. Every song in it is memorable.
Well, I had a great time writing it, and I wrote it with a wonderful woman, Dorothy Fields. And I was at a songwriters meeting. We were talking about copyright legislation, and I walked over and I said, "Would you like to write a song with me?" And she said, "I thought you'd never ask." And I thought, here's this woman who'd written all these great songs, all the Fred Astaire pictures, and she said, "Nobody asks."
Yeah.
Well, I did, and we wrote some songs together. And then when Bob Fosse came to me for the score of Sweet Charity, I said, "I'd like to do it with Dorothy." And he said, "Well, we've done Redhead with her already." He said, "It'd be marvelous." So it was really fun working with her. I mean, she was really remarkable. And some of the lyrics, she was quite along in her years at that time. And some of the lyrics, like a song called Where Am I Going? Barbara Streisand did it. We had an enormous amount of recordings. Those were the times when recording stars used to like to do the songs from shows.
Where am I going, and what will I find? What's in this grab bag that I call my mind? What am I doing alone on the shelf? Ain't it a shame? No one's to blame but myself. I keep falling in love for just the kick of it? Staggering through the thin and thick of it, hating each old and tired trick of it. Know what I am, I'm good and sick of it. Where am I going? Why do I care? Run where it's foul, run where it's fair. No matter where I run, I meet myself there, looking inside me. What do I see? Anger and hope and doubt. What am I all about and where am I going? Why do I care? No matter where I run, I meet myself there, looking inside me. What do I see? I see anger and hope and doubt. And what am I all about and where am I I'm not gonna be the world's first little old taxi dancer. I'm getting out. There's gotta be something better than this. There's gotta be something better to do. And when I find me something better to do, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get up, get out and do it. There's gotta be some respectable trade. There's gotta be something easy to learn. And when I find me something I have which can learn, get up, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get up, get out and learn it. All these jokers, know I hate them, with their groping, grabbing, clutching, clinching, strangling, handling, fumbling, pinching. Boy! There's gotta be some line cleaner than this. There's gotta be some good reason to live. And when I find me some kind of right life and live, I'm gonna get up, get out, get up, get out, live it. Ooh, I have got it, I have got it. I'm gonna be a receptionist in one of those glass office buildings. Lever Brothers. No, no, no. Seagram's. 9 to 5. And I'm gonna have my very own typewriter, Underwood, and there's gonna be water coolers and office parties. Oh, and coffee breaks. When I sit at my desk on the 41st floor in my copy of the Dior, I'll receive big tycoons and I'll point to a chair. I'll say, honey, while you're waiting, how would you like to put it down over there? There's gotta be something better than this. There's gotta be something better to do. And when I find me something better to do, I'm gonna get up, get up, get up, get out, do it. Me too, me too. I'm gonna get out of here and I'm gonna go right to the top. And I'm gonna be a hat chick girl.
At Sardi's East. And I wear one of them fine little black numbers, you know, cut up to here and down to there. Oh, all those hats coming in. Derbies, Homburgs. Ooh, that cute little checker number with the skinny rim and the feather. Check your hat, sir, check your coat, sir, check your vest, sir, check your pants. Check your socks, sir, check your shoes, sir, I can hold them while you dance. Check your eyes, sir, check your ears, sir, check to see if you're free. How about it after hours, I'll check you. And you check me.
Me too.
What?
I'm getting out too. But baby, what can you do?
I don't know. Just get me out of here and I'll figure it out later. There's gotta be some life cleaner than this. There's gotta be some more reason to live. And when I find me some kind of life I can live, get up, get up, get up, live it!
One of the nice things, of course, about the tunes from Sweet Charity, indeed, love the stuff you've written, is that they're very good jazz vehicles, aren't they? You can play nice sort of jazz patterns on them.
Yes, well, you know, I was influenced. You know, I went from classical music into, well, first society piano. You know, when I first got out of classical music, I used to play everything. I used to think I was playing jazz, and it used to be, you know. And it all sounded like classical music or bad cocktail piano. And I started to go more and more toward jazz, and as I think, you know, that like most writers, you are completely the sum of all your parts, and I became the sum of my parts too. I became more and more influenced by jazz, so as a result of that, my writing took a very strong jazz turn.
Yes. What was that thing? I want to employ some of our musicians. That thing you were jamming with them with before I came. Was it If They Could See Me Now?
Yes, that was from Sweet Charity, right?
Do you have a little go with them? Test,
Well-
put them on the metal. Go
Well,
on.
I'm not going to give them all because I did the verse myself.
You did.
All right. They're terrific, by the way.
Tonight at 8, you should have seen a chauffeur pull up in a rented limousine. My neighbors burned, they'd like to die. When I tell them that who's getting in and going out is I, if they could see me now, my little gang of mine, eating fancy chow and drinking fancy wine. I'd like those stumble bumps to see for a fact the kind of top drawer, first rate chums I attract. All I can say is, wow, look where I am. Tonight I landed, pow, right in a pot of jam. What a setup. Holy cow, they'd never believe it if my friends could see me now. Gang of mine, eating fancy chow and drinking fancy wine. I'd like those stumble bumps to see for a fact the kind of top drawer, first rate chums I attract. All I can say is, wow, look where I am. Tonight I landed, pow, right in a pot of jam. What a setup. Holy cow, they'd never believe it if my friends could see me
Tell me about this musical called I Love My Wife, which in fact, along with Barnum, will make it a sort of double up for you in Australia. When did you write that?
That was 1977. 1977? Yes.
And what's it about? What's the sort of theme of it?
Well, it was kind of a strange little show. It was a funny little show. It's about a couple, two couples actually, who are very nice, normal, blue-collar people, and they live in Trenton, New Jersey. Now, I don't know if you know much about Trenton, New Jersey, but living in Trenton, New Jersey tells you an awful lot. It's the pits.
It is.
So they meet, and one of the fellows is a braggart, and he decides to tell this other fellow about his experiences in the great world in New York and the sexual experiences. And he's talking about being part of the now generation. And the whole story is really about these two lovely couples who feel that they should really get involved in group sex. And get involved in that. And what it is basically they are so scared and so clumsy. The whole thing is about that because they want to be part of now generation. We have all those channels in television now that are very explicit. And they felt they were way behind the times. And of course, it's, strangely enough, it is about sex and it's about possibly swapping, but it never works out that way. And it turns out, you won't believe it, as innocent as a Walt Disney movie.
Actually, it would clarify the entire issue if you do a song from the show.
Oh, okay, fine.
Hey there, good times, here I am. Welcome back, your baby lamb. Open wide them golden doors and set my chair down next to yours. I've been freezing, sneezing out there where the bad times blow. Please don't stop to scold me. Let your loving arms enfold me.
Hey there, good times, take my hand. Give my music to the band. Dust up that old welcome mat and show me where to hang my hat. I've been lost for all these years, crying buckets full of tears. Please don't be so cold and chilly. Welcome back, your weeping Willie.
Hey there, good times, let me in. Ask me how the hell I've been. Turn my picture from the wall and hug me till I start to fall.
I've been boozing, losing out there where the bad times grow.
Lead me to your villa.
Turn my bed down, puff my pillow. Ain't there good times, take me back. Grab my suitcase, pay the hack. Kiss my cheek and shout my name. And make me feel I'm glad I came. I've been down in Satan's den. Ain't felt good since don't know when. Though I'm used and bruised and muddy, slap my back and call me buddy. Bye-bye, bad times, pack your gear. I've had sad times up to here. Hey there, glad times, please appear. Show me that I'm not forgotten. Oil me down and spoil me rotten. So long, bum days, gotta split. Gloomy, glum days, go on git. Sugar plum days, shake my mitt. Shadooray and hallelujah, happy days are coming to ya. Bye-bye, bad times, so long, sad times. Hey there, good times. Hey there, good times. Here I am. Hey there, good times.
Finally, Si, is it getting more difficult nowadays to write a sort of successful musical? I mean, the big hits in Britain, certainly and on Broadway, are the musicals. But it seems to me that it's changed. It's a much more complicated business nowadays, writing musicals, than it ever was in the Gershwin days or the Porter days.
I don't know. I think it's more expensive. I don't think it's more difficult. It's always difficult. I don't know if you ever heard Larry Gelbart is quoted as saying what it was like to be on the road with a musical. And he said, if Adolf Hitler was alive today, the best that I could wish for him was that he was on the road with a musical.
As bad as that, is it?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I remember we were out with a show called Little Me, and Carolyn Lee was at the back of the theater. That was at the time, and everybody was arguing. And we were having some fights about something, and Bob Fosse cut 2 lines of her lyric. And she ran out of the theater, and it was a deserted street in Philadelphia, not a very good section. And she ran 2 blocks down, got a traffic cop, and brought him back and said, that man cut 2 lines of my lyric. I want him arrested. I mean, it gets like that. A funny story about Little Me, too. At one time, we had a song at the end of the first act. It was called Don't You Fret, Lafayette, We Are Here. And it was all about these girls who went to entertain the troops. And, you know, where the bells are 17, each and every one a queen. So if your esprit de corps is running out of gasoline, while folks in Herald Square think it over there, don't you fret, Lafayette, we are here. Cannons were booming. Sid Caesar was doing all kinds of antics. There was all kinds of scenery flying around. And somehow the show was going well until we got to that number, and then it was greeted with apathy. And then Bob Fosse said, well, let me fool with it again. And the song turned out to be this.
Pardon me, miss, but I've never done this with a real live girl. Straight off the farm with an actual arm full of real live girl. Pardon me if your affectionate squeeze fogs up my glasses and buckles my knees. I'm simply drowned in the sight and the sound and the scent and the feel of a real live girl.
Nothing can beat getting swept off your feet by a real live girl. Dreams in your bunk don't compare with a hunk of a real live girl. Speaking of miracles, this must be it.
Just when I started to learn how to knit,
I'm all in stitches from finding what riches a waltz can reveal with a real live girl. A real live girl. A real live girl.
I've seen photographs and facsimiles that have set my head off in a whirl. But
no work of art gets you right in the heart like a real live girl. Who wants substitutes? I'll take the flowering hat and the towering heel and the squeal of a real live girl. Real live girl. Real live girl. Don't be a holdout for Helen of Troy.
I am a healthy American boy. I'd rather gape at the dear little shape of the stern and the keel
Of a full-time vocational, full operational
girl.
is sadly all we have time for. You've got the most appropriate play-out number that I've ever heard, one that you wrote yourself called It's Not Where You Start, It's Where You Finish, which was from?
It was from Seesaw.
From Seesaw.
It's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's not how you go, it's how you
Land 100 to 1 shot, you call him a klutz. Can outrun the favorite, all he needs is the guts. Your final return will not diminish, and you can be the cream of the crop. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you're gonna finish on top.
It's not where you start, it's where you
It's not where you start, it's where you
It's not
finish.
how you go, it's how you
It's not how you go, it's how you land. Woo! Your final return will not diminish, and you can be the cream of the crop.
It's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you're gonna finish on top. If you start at the top, you're certain to drop. You've got to watch your timing. Better begin by climbing up, up, up the ladder. If you're going to last, you can't make it fast, man. Nobody starts a winner. Be a slow beginner. Easy does it, my friend. Protect your fine endurance. Easy does it, my friend. For that's your life insurance. While you are young, take it rung after 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 rung.
Kids, come on, we're getting much better than that. Let's get something bigger. Come on. Let's do much bigger.
It's not where you start, it's where you finish. Wow! It's not how you go, it's how you land. 100 to 1 shot, you call him a klutz. And up on the favorite, all you need is the guts. Your final return will not diminish, and you can be the cream of the crop. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you're gonna finish on.
Hey, wait, come back. We gotta do a bigger finish.
It's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you're on top.
It's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's not how you go, it's how you land. 100 to 1 shot, you call him a klutz. Can't outrun the favorite, all he needs is the guts. Your final return will not diminish, and you can be the cream of the crop. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you're